Hey folks, see if you've ever had this problem. You're trying to eat a little healthier, but you're in the grocery store aisle, you're looking at packaging, nutrition labels, and they're so confusing, you don't know what's good for you and what's not. Well, this is why I love Thrive Market, my go-to online grocery store for getting all of my healthy essentials delivered, and I don't even have to leave my couch. Finding better options for the whole family is easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. Just scan a product and it instantly recommends healthier swaps. This is how my wife and I found our new favorite snack, IQ bars. Sometimes I eat one in the morning with my coffee, sometimes just later on in between meals. They also have so many on-site filters that make it simple to shop by the needs of everyone in the family. Maybe you have someone who needs gluten-free food, somebody that has a peanut allergy. Well, no more scouring ingredient labels when you can just filter it all on Thrive Market. My wife and I often use the high protein filter to stock up on things like Sieti chips. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/TCAT for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/TCATT. thrivemarket.com/TCAT. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 343 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah?
Yeah, having a great week. The only bad thing for me is that my wife has started a countdown for our youngest heading off to college.
Oh, yeah.
And we're under 3 weeks now.
Uh-oh.
And
Final
so,
countdown.
yeah, there's been, my wife's been crying a little bit.
Oh.
It's getting sad.
Yeah.
It's not sad for me right now. It'll be really sad on the day, but my wife starts weeks in advance.
She's crying for two reasons. Your daughter leaving.
She'll be alone with me.
Be alone with you.
Yep. I knew that was coming.
Yep.
Hey, let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Madison Campbell.
Hey, Madison.
Karen Drake.
Thank you, Drake.
Mandy Doubler.
What's going on, Doubler?
Kimberly Lawhorn.
Oh, hey, Kimberly.
It took me a while to get that one out.
It did.
Kayleen Parrish.
Thank you, Kayleen.
Haley Cohen.
What's going on, Colin?
Leanne Robinson.
Hey, Leanne.
Holly Brisley.
What's up, Holly?
Suzanne Jackson.
Well, there's Suzanne.
Elaine Pepard.
Oh, Papard.
That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
Haley.
Hey, Haley.
Judy Kinchlow.
What's going on, Judy?
Teresa Stanley.
Appreciate that, Teresa.
Jill Sugars.
Hey, there's Sugars.
Alice Kehoe.
Well, what's up, Keyhole?
Charles Boyer.
Hey, Charles.
And Cassie Mychek. That's what I'm going with.
Well, thank you, Cassie.
And last but not least, Beth Millar.
Hey, Beth.
Yeah, so thanks for all the new support. Then we go back into the vault. This week, we selected Nancy Zeker.
There is Nancy.
Yeah, we appreciate Nancy and all the people who continue to support the show.
We do.
Month after month. We had a couple of PayPal donations. One was from Matthews Katz.
Hey, Matthews.
Frankenberry, Countess Chocula, and Booberry Jr.
Oh, delicious flavors if they were the cereals.
Not cats.
Not cats.
But apparently, he loves the show. The cats love the show. And we had a very large donation from Robert Venditti.
Oh, Venditti.
Or Didi.
Venditti.
One of the two. Yeah, we appreciate all of that.
And you know what? I appreciate each and every person listening because without them, who would listen?
That makes a lot of sense.
I know. So I'm just letting everybody know we really appreciate them listening.
We do.
Week in and week out.
We do. Absolutely. We have an episode out right now on Unsolved where we're talking about the murder of Anne Heron, headed over to the UK. And there's a lot of mystery behind this one.
Maybe I can use my 3 UK languages.
Accents.
Languages.
Are they different languages or just different accents? All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I'm ready.
We're talking about a guy named Thomas Lee Bean. And we're going back a ways. We're going back to the early 60s. In April 1963, Olympic skier Sonja McCaskie was strangled and dismembered by 18-year-old high school student Thomas Lee Bean. He had a history of troubled behavior. When it came to the trial, which we'll obviously dive into, his attorneys presented an insanity defense, but there was quite a bit of evidence that he put some thought and planning into the murder. Sonja Yvonne McCaskie was born in Elgin, Scotland on February 19th, 1939. Her parents were Henry and Dorothy McCaskie. Henry died soon after Sonja was born. She had two siblings named Jennifer and Guy. Dorothy moved the family to the U.S. in 1946. The family lived in Long Beach, California, but they were very interested in skiing. So they moved to Tahoe City, California. Sonja took up skiing quickly. She participated in the girls' ski team at her high school and at Sierra College.
Could you snow ski?
I have never done it.
Never
even tried it. I tried water skiing one time, almost pulled my arms out of the socket.
Yeah.
I assume if I tried to snow ski, I would break something. So
Maybe.
I just don't.
Maybe try snowboarding.
No, I would probably hit a tree and kill myself.
So basically, you're just going to stay away from all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems very dangerous to me. I know a lot of people do it. It's probably not dangerous. I'm not great at rollerblading, things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was for me. But, here's the thing that kind of jumped out at me. She was living in an area, and this is way back, right?
Yeah.
60 plus years ago, where they actually had a high school girls ski team.
Yeah.
You're not going to find that here.
I don't know where you're going to go skiing here.
No, you have to live in a very, particular part of the country, part of the world. But I remember, growing up, they didn't even have things like, at least where I went to school, lacrosse, hockey, some of these sports that are kind of ubiquitous today. Right. They didn't have that. It was baseball, basketball, football, track.
Yeah, I remember they eventually introduced soccer. That's how old I am.
Mm. Yeah. Right after it was invented?
Right after. Yes.
Sonja wrote to the Ski Club of Great Britain, asking for a chance to join the 1960 Winter Olympics team. The Olympics were held at the Palisades Tahoe Ski Resort near Tahoe City. So interesting, because that's where they lived. When the British team arrived for training, Sonja tried out and earned a spot in the slalom race. She finished last in the race during her event. The next winter, she joined the British national ski team and competed throughout Europe. So obviously she was very talented.
Sure. It's not easy to snow ski. I mean, sure, I was 6 years old, 7 years old when I did my first
Black Diamond.
Black Diamond.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Is it easy to snow ski or is it hard, or is it hard to be good? Because most people could do a lot of things.
Sure, they can.
But to do it well, and particularly to do it at a very high level, or, there's a big gap there.
You gotta have some good skills.
Yeah. Sonja attended San Jose State College in San Jose, California in the fall of 1961 and the spring of 1962. At one point, she was married to a man named Jeffrey Schmidt, but they got divorced around 1960. Her Find a Grave profile says that she had a child named William who was born in 1957, but most sources don't, mention him at all. Sonja gave birth to a son named Kim in 1962. He was only 10 months old when Sonja died. At the time of her death, she was living in a duplex in Reno, Nevada. She worked full-time as a secretary for the Blue Ribbon Meat Company in Sparks, Nevada. She worked part-time as a ski instructor at the Slide Mountain Ski Resort. Sonja had reportedly applied for a spot on the next British Olympic team. So, we're painting a picture of, her life, no doubt a very accomplished skier, but also what I'm taking away is this is someone who is not giving up on her dream. Wants to be not just an Olympian, because I think she had already done that, but wants to do well.
Yeah, no, I think she's got a dream and a plan, and she's sticking to it. She's going to make that dream happen.
Sonja filed a paternity suit against David Conrad, a 24-year-old grad assistant and part-time English instructor at the University of Nevada. Sonja was seeking medical expenses and what was deemed reasonable child support, but Conrad denied having any relation to Kim. Court records indicate that Conrad wrote to Sonja after he was married and after Kim was born. He wrote in one letter that Sonja was consorting with another individual when Kim would have been conceived. This was according to the Reno Gazette Journal.
Consorting. It's a different way to say that she was having sex with somebody else.
Yeah, I think that's what he meant.
Yeah.
I think most of the listeners got that from the context. But, hey, put it out there. So you can see what this guy is trying to do, right? He's saying, this is not my child. I don't want to, take responsibility because she's out or was out with at least one other individual. The case was heard by a judge in the week before Sonja was killed, and she took a polygraph for the paternity suit on April 3rd, 1963. Sonja had plans to go out with a friend that weekend. She last spoke to her friend Beverly Frickstad around 9:30 p.m. on April 4th. Sonja's neighbors reported that she arrived at her duplex at 4:30 p.m. that day, but no one saw her after that. At 11:30 p.m., her boss, George Horgan, delivered her paycheck from the ski resort. When no one answered, he slipped the check under the door. This check was later found in a different spot, which indicated it was picked up either by Sonja or by her killer. On the evening of Friday, April 5th, 1963, Sonja's babysitter, Billy Nielsen, called the police to report that she was worried because Sonja failed to pick up her son that day. Mrs. Nielsen had been taking care of the baby for about 5 weeks because of Sonja's busy work schedule. Sonja normally came to see him during her lunch breaks or after work. She always picked him up on Fridays and kept him with her until Saturday morning. She worked weekends at the ski resort.
So a pretty busy mom.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, the way that it was reported really makes it sound as though this babysitter was keeping the baby full time throughout the week. At 10:20 p.m., a police officer entered through the unlocked door and found Sonja's body, which had been mutilated. The officer found her heart lying 2 feet from the door. Her left foot was found wrapped in a blanket in the center of the room. Sonja's decapitated body was stuffed into a chest. Her head was found under her body, wrapped in undergarments and a lace tablecloth.
Well, that's a shocking find.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've talked about it before, but if you get a call on the radio as a police officer to check on someone, you obviously don't go up to the door expecting to find a dismembered body, right? When you push it open. So it has to be shocking.
I would think it would be one of the last things you would expect.
Officers initially theorized that the killer knew her because there was no evidence of forced entry. And I get where that thought comes from, but, I'm always a little leery about that because, if somebody knocks on your door, rings your doorbell, you open the door and they barge in. Is it really going to look like forced entry? I mean, the door is not going to be pried open.
There's a good chance it won't look like it.
Yeah, or let's say someone was following you home to your apartment, and right as you unlocked your door, they grabbed you and pushed you inside. Okay, it may not look like forced entry, but I understand they got to start with at least a theory.
Sure.
And obviously David Conrad came under suspicion, right? The timing doesn't look good for him because they're about ready to have this trial to establish paternity, but he was cleared Early on April 6th, after taking a polygraph, probably pretty big on polygraphs in the early 1960s.
Yeah.
We've already talked about 2 of them.
And they used to put so much more weight behind them.
Oh, they did. So he passes this polygraph and police are probably like, well, can't be him. You see that in old movies.
Some people are really good at passing polygraphs.
I think it's been proven that it can be done, that they're just unreliable. In Chico, California, Sonja's ex-husband, Jeff Schmidt, checked in at the local police headquarters when he learned about the murder. Schmidt said that he and Sonja were divorced 3 years earlier and that he hadn't seen her for a year and a half. Investigators methodically went about interviewing Sonja's male acquaintances and coworkers. By April 8th, 5 of her friends took lie detector tests and passed. They're just handing out lie detector tests to everyone.
Well, that's because they put so much weight behind it, so they were just trying to eliminate people based on those results, right?
Yeah, no, I think you're right back then. Reno Identification Bureau Captain Dallas Severs told the Reno Gazette-Journal that the Bureau had to compare every fingerprint that was not Sonja's to 46 other people who had been questioned. And this is an interesting aspect of true crime. When you look back through history before computers and before, databases and things like that, you had people sitting and comparing fingerprints. And there's a lot of work, took a lot of time.
Especially when you had to get that magnifying glass out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you probably always had to have the magnifying glass or some kind of magnification tool.
Like a monocle.
I don't know if anybody used a monocle. That day, the police revealed that a man answered Sonja's phone on the afternoon of April 5th. According to the Reno Gazette-Journal, Mrs. Nielsen called Sonja's home between 5 and 5:30 p.m. A man answered hello. Mrs. Nielsen thought that she had the wrong number, so she hung up. She redialed the number, and the same voice answered. So she asked, "Is Sonja there?" The man said, "No, she isn't." He paused before asking, "What number are you calling?" Mrs. Nielsen told him the number, and the man gave her a different phone number and hung up. Detectives looked into that phone number and learned that residents had not received a mistaken phone call.
Seems a little bizarre.
Yeah, very bizarre. I don't know what you're making of it if you're the police, other than most likely whoever answered this phone was the person who killed Sonja. But then I think it raises a lot of questions, right? Number one, why are you answering the phone? You don't have to answer it. You could just let it ring. And then number two, you answered it not once, but twice. And then the second time you gave the person another number. Why? It's a head scratcher, I think, if you're the police.
For sure. I'm scratching my head right now thinking about it.
You are. I'm watching you. DA William Raggio told news outlets, "Yet we can't discount this incident. Possibly whoever killed her may have been interrupted in the dismemberment. We believe this because an attempt had been made to cut off her right leg." So we kind of talked about what was a very grisly scene. And then, police come out and say that it appears as though the killer didn't get a chance to finish the dismemberment for whatever reason.
Maybe got interrupted. Maybe couldn't handle it anymore. Who knows?
The police also revealed to the press that Sonja had what they called an abnormal complex personality. Investigators found her diary, written in 1961 and part of 1962. The entries showed that Sonja contemplated self-destruction. She had also written what they called some morbid poems. And this was very different from the characterization by most people of Sonja as a shy and quiet girl. Chief of Police Elmer Briscoe and the DA read 2 of Sonja's poems. These poems were even published by the Reno Gazette-Journal. On July 2nd, 1960, she wrote, "Happiness, love, if held too close and struggled for too violently, it seems to wither and slowly die. And in the death procedure, agonies by score are undergone. To see before one's eyes this thing of beauty, tenderness, and love be so utterly and completely destroyed." And there's a lot of other ones, right, that are very similar, talk about death and this and that. It just seems so strange that they're reading out these poems from her personal diary.
Yeah, it does, but I'm assuming that there's a plan behind it.
Well, I was trying to figure out what the purpose would be. This is not an unknown person. It's not a Jane Doe. You're not trying to identify her. So you're not saying, hey, if you recognize this type of writing or... So I couldn't figure out what the reason for that would be. Sonja's friend Beverly Frickstad, the last person to speak to her, told the Reno Gazette-Journal, don't you let them make Sonja out to be anything but a normal person with normal problems, because she was a lovely girl. She was a moody girl. She was an intellectual. One of her problems was that she was continually striving, but didn't seem to have a goal. She was always going to classes, but didn't seem to have any professional goal in mind. So maybe this is different from the skiing, where it did seem like she had a very concrete goal. This is more about her life outside of skiing, I think she's talking about.
Yeah, I believe she is.
But, people write poems, or they write things in their diaries that, I think if they were read, when you sit down and you try to interpret it, what does it mean? Well, maybe it doesn't mean anything. It's just somebody trying to express their whatever emotion they got going on that day.
Yeah. I mean, if you looked at my journal, your head would spin.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd hate to have to testify to it later too.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
Could be very incriminating. Frickstad said that the only thing bothering Sonja during their phone call was that she had painted her living room yellow and she thought it was too gaudy. So, I think that tells you something. She wasn't talking about a stalker or someone she thought maybe was following her. She didn't seem to convey any worries at all, other than the choice of her paint color, which is something my wife struggles with all the time.
Paint color?
As soon as she paints something, she's like, oh, I don't know if I picked the right color.
Got it off by one shade?
I was like, I think you should just go with it, because who wants to repaint this whole thing?
She probably already did like 5 sample colors on the wall.
Well, they don't have, they get the little sticks, the stick sheets now.
Oh.
They just stick to the wall instead of painting little swabs. Yeah.
That's how long
you haven't painted anything in quite a while, have you? Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince. And I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT.
Want to pull off the season's freshest trends? You just need the right shoes. That's where Designer Shoe Warehouse comes in. Loving wide leg jeans? Pair them with sleek, low-profile sneakers. Obsessed with the sheer trend? Try it with mesh flats. Feeling boho? Comfy sandals nail the whole free-spirited thing. Find on-trend shoes from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, and more at DSW.
The Reno Gazette-Journal reported that Sonja's friends and family were upset by what they called the probing into her life during the investigation and said that her reputation was unjustly put on trial. And it sounds like I think they were right about some of that. I mean, here's a victim, a murder victim.
Yeah.
And the police are coming out and, reading her diary entries and saying that she had an abnormal personality or complex or whatever it was. On April 10th, the authorities announced that Sonja's cause of death was strangulation. According to the pathologist's report, her hyoid bone was fractured and she had small hemorrhages around her neck and eyes. Sonja was strangled with a hemp rope with clotheslines tied at either end. Her time of death was estimated to be between 5 a.m. and 12 p.m. on April 5th, but there really was no conclusive opinion. And that is about 7 hours. I mean, it's pretty broad.
It is pretty broad.
Investigators were still analyzing evidence found at Sonja's home. One piece of evidence was a bloody footprint belonging to a man. The police were also looking into why Sonja's vehicle had a dented right rear wheel. Finally, investigators were still waiting on a pathologist report that would indicate whether or not Sonja was sexually assaulted. And obviously we're talking about the early 60s here. So a little more limited
Sure.
in what they could do. Obviously there's no DNA or anything like that. At a press conference on April 12th, the DA said robbery may have been the motive because some valuable items were missing from Sonja's apartment. He also said that all 15 employees at the Sparks Meat Company had been cleared, including one man whose fingerprint was found on a vodka bottle in Sonja's home. They even said that female suspects had also been questioned and cleared.
So they're 0 for nothing.
Yeah, up to this point. But then the very next day, on April 13th, 18-year-old high school student Thomas Lee Bean was arrested for pawning Sonja's stolen camera. The sale was made back on the 6th. Investigator John Peevers found the camera on April 11th when he was checking pawn shops for items stolen from Sonja's apartment. The signature from the seller was difficult to read, but officers traced it back to Thomas. Really pretty smart, if you think about it. And I don't know that might not happen today the exact same way.
Yeah, I mean, good for police effort, really bad for the suspect, right? Got lazy and decided he wanted to cash in on something that he stole from the house.
I think the difference between back then and today is his options would have been pretty limited back then. You've got pawn shops. Okay, you get some cash that way. Today, heck, you could sell it on eBay. There's all kinds of different electronic avenues probably where you could sell that. Where you could sell, those types of items, but still doesn't mean it won't be traced back to you. 2 officers asked Thomas to go with them to answer questions about the camera. They cited a technicality about minors selling items to pawn shops. Thomas agreed to give his fingerprints and footprint, but he got nervous when his footprint was taken. He said he knew he was being questioned for the McCaskie murder, even though no one had brought it up. Okay, so they were being pretty sly.
Yeah, they were.
Saying, hey, we just need to talk to you about the sale. It shouldn't have happened. You were a minor, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But for him to bring up the McCaskie murder and police to say that they didn't even broach the subject yet,
Yeah.
that's not a good sign. As he was being escorted to the interrogation room, he ran out the front door. 15 to 20 officers and the DA chased him. He was caught 2 blocks away. It was said that officers fired 5 warning shots to try to stop him.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah. We really mean it now. This is our 5th time. You better stop.
Can you imagine a police officer popping off 5 rounds as a warning? I don't think they do that anymore.
No, not up here. They don't.
Where do you think they do it?
I don't know. But I know they don't do it up here.
When he was captured, Thomas asked an officer, "Who was shooting at me? I wish they would have killed me." So, granted, this is like an 18-year-old kid, right? Man, but kid, we talk about that all the time. He's really kind of given himself away with a lot of the things that he's saying. Number one, bringing up the murder when nobody's even asked him about it. After he was arrested, Thomas confessed that he strangled Sonja with a piece of twine, raped her, and then dismembered her body. Thomas told the police that he had never met Sonja. She was what he called a chance victim.
Don't like the way that sounds.
Well, it sounds cold and callous because it is. It's also very scary, to think that, someone is just out looking for a victim. That idea that a bad person is just walking around. And when they happen to see you, you're now in their crosshairs. That's a very scary thought. Thomas admitted that he went inside Sonja's apartment with a 10-inch knife and a length of cord. He was prowling the streets around midnight on April 5th. He said he was looking for women's underwear hanging on clotheslines because he had a habit of stealing it. He strangled Sonja as she slept. He said she woke up during the attack and she begged him not to kill her because she said she had to take care of her baby. So that's kind of heartbreaking stuff.
It was really heartbreaking. Yeah, I can't even imagine the fear that she was experiencing at that moment.
Thomas said he left Sonja's apartment around 5 to 5:30 a.m. Before he left, he stuck 3 kitchen knives in her body. Thomas had entered the apartment barefoot through a back door, which is why he left behind the footprint. Captain Dallas Sievers from the Identification Bureau matched Thomas's footprint with the one from the crime scene. So we're not talking about a shoe print. We are talking about an actual footprint. Normally when you hear or say footprint, it's really a shoe print.
Sure, yeah.
Because most people don't walk around barefoot. But maybe he thought, okay, I won't make as much noise. This is also a time period, as we talked about before, where a lot of people didn't lock their doors. So, this 18-year-old kid enters through a back door, not locked. Why? People were just trusting.
Of course. Kind of miss those days.
Well, I think it's nice to romanticize about those days and to think that we could live in a world where that's possible, but I don't think it ever really was possible because we've done so many stories.
Yeah, it's true.
You've always had predators. You've always had people intent on doing bad things. I'm not sure that we really should have ever left our doors unlocked. I don't know what the reason for it was. I mean, if you need a cup of sugar, neighbor, just knock on the door.
Come on in.
Don't just walk on in.
Yeah, just walk on in.
But that idyllic notion of Mayberry is great until something shatters it. And there's a story from, places all around the country where that notion was shattered. And here's another one of those. After questioning, the police took Thomas to his home and found a jacket and rope. He showed them where he took Sonja's car on a joyride. Inside Thomas's vehicle, the police found a radio believed to have been stolen from her apartment, as well as 2 loaded guns. After Thomas was arrested, his father spoke with the Reno Gazette-Journal about his childhood. Thomas Lee Bean was born in Reno, Nevada in 1944. He lived with his father, Elza Roy Bean, and his brother. His parents were divorced, and his mother was reportedly living in California. Roy told the Reno Gazette-Journal that he was a preacher on the East Coast, but he didn't say why he stopped preaching. He said that Thomas loved animals, enjoyed working with cars, and enjoyed painting. He described Thomas as an average boy with average interests whom girls liked to date because they felt he was one boy they could go out with who didn't try to make advances or get fresh.
He was the safe date.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Or that's what his dad thought. But in June 1961, Thomas was arrested in Salt Lake City after he attempted to strangle a girl. He was held for 15 days in a juvenile home and was questioned by a psychiatrist and psychologist. A probation officer said Tom was disturbed and that he had to be watched constantly because of his disturbed, repressed personality. This according to the Reno Gazette-Journal. So, his dad said he's the safe date. Obviously, he wasn't. If, at 15, 16 years old, you're trying to strangle a girl, you're far from the safe date.
Really far. But I think, if you look at him just on the front end, seems safe.
Well, if you're only looking from the standpoint of, he's not going to make advances or get fresh. Okay, maybe that was true. But it sounds like he was doing much worse than that. A psychiatric evaluation showed that Thomas was, quote, sick enough that we had one of our officers escort him to the Nevada border on the way to Las Vegas, according to the probation officer. Once he was in Las Vegas, Thomas asked to be sent to a reformatory because, in his own words, he needed help. He spent 8 months at a reformatory in Elko, where he was considered a model student. Eventually, Thomas returned to school. He worked in the cafeteria to pay for his lunches. He didn't participate in extracurricular activities. Roy said that everyone in their house was sick with a cold on the night of the murder. Thomas told them he was going to get cough drops and said he'd be back in a little while, but he didn't return until 7 a.m. He came back with a radio and claimed he got it from a man whom he helped with his horses. Roy didn't think it was strange for Thomas to stay out like this because he loved horses. I like horses too.
Well, I do too.
Doesn't mean I'm going to stay out till 7 in the morning. I just found it odd, right? Now, obviously, this is dad talking to the papers afterwards. And this can't be an easy thing to do as a parent when your child is a suspect or has been arrested at this point for murder.
But I know a lot of people really love certain animals and they can spend a lot of time with them.
I get all that.
Yeah.
But if you're saying, hey, I'm running out for cough drops, and then 7 o'clock in the morning, you come back and say, well, I met a man who, had some horses and I'm hanging out with these horses. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to add up to me. Not to mention you're not that old.
Well, that's true.
You really shouldn't be out till 7 a.m.
Yeah, something in your brain should tell you it's time to get home.
Well, and for dad to say, I didn't think it was that strange for him to stay out till 7 in the morning. That seems off to me.
Yeah, unless he just had a habit of always doing something.
Roy said they talked about the murder the next morning once it made the news. He described it as a normal conversation, and they didn't speculate about who the killer was. Roy refused to answer when asked if Thomas acted normally that morning. And my first thought is, how could you act normally after doing that? Unless you were a true psychopath.
Which there are plenty of those in true crime.
Yeah, and even outside of the world of true crime. But man, most people, I would think at the very least the next day that's going to be weighing on you, what you just did. Roy also said that Thomas went on a date with a girl after the murder. So he must not have been too broken up about what he did.
Sounds like he just went back in the swing of things.
Yeah, he told the paper that Thomas didn't get any psychiatric help in Elko because he didn't think the crime would have happened. if he had received help. He admitted he had noticed abnormal symptoms in his son, saying, "Isn't there some time when you can sense there is something wrong?" He needed help I couldn't give him.
It's tough as a parent not to be able to provide the type of help your kid needs.
Yeah, if he's being truthful and saying, "I saw the signs. I saw something wasn't right. I didn't know what to do, or I couldn't do anything," that would be very tough as a parent. On April 15th, Thomas was arraigned on a murder charge. His attorney, Harry Anderson, said that he would plead insanity. Thomas's father had retained Anderson for just $1.
The judge from Night Court?
Harry Anderson. That's a good pull. No, I do not think it was the judge from Night Court. And I think it's just Night Court, not the Night Court.
The Night Court.
Anderson said he accepted the $1 retainer fee because he disliked capital punishment and thought Thomas needed someone with at least some experience in criminal law to represent him. You know, I think attorneys get a bad rap sometime. They catch a lot of flack and many times for good reason. But there are a lot of attorneys like this guy who help people for little to no money out of sheer principle. You have to admire that.
You have to, absolutely. I do a lot of things just out of pure principle. I call it the PP method.
Pure principle.
Yes.
Thomas's scheduled preliminary hearing was called off on April 25th. His attorney said there was no point in holding it because there is no question that there was a homicide and that the defendant committed it. So, I think you can see where we're going here.
Sure.
And where the attorney is going. He's not disputing the fact that his client killed Sonja. It's all going to be about his state of mind and, an insanity defense and all of that. Thomas was charged with murder on April 29th. DA William Raggio told the court he received reports from 2 psychologists who examined Thomas. The reports indicated Thomas had no mental defects to constitute an insanity defense. And I'll be honest with you, man, I am always fascinated by these mental health experts, some on the side of the prosecution and some on the side of the defense. We had that case a while back.
Sure.
Where both sides agreed, but rarely do they agree. And I think it's to be expected.
Yeah.
Even the smallest step forward can make a big difference in your financial future. When you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future with no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Making progress has never been easier. I think we've all been in that position where we've had an overdraft. Well, with Chime, you can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. That's amazing. And they have over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make progress towards a better financial future with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/TCAT. That's chime.com/TCATT. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. MyPay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. $2 fee applies to get funds instantly. Crime checking account required. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. True Crime All the Time is sponsored by BetterHelp. Folks, therapy can feel like a big investment, but let's think about the state of your mind. It's just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, which adds up really fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. And you get quality care at a price that makes sense and can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach. I've used the BetterHelp service for years, and I love the fact that, I can connect with a therapist in a comfortable spot in my home on my laptop. With over 30,000 therapists BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/TCAT today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TCATT.
Hey, listeners, it's Leon Nafok. I'm here to tell you about a brand new series from me and Prologue Projects, an Audible original series called Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer, the story of a television show that changed the world and the man who gave it his name. But did you know that before the Jerry Springer Show made him notorious all over the world, Springer was something else entirely? A respected Midwestern politician, the progressive mayor of a major Rust Belt city, a man many saw as a future leader in Democratic politics. How did this idealistic rising star, with his lofty political ambitions, take a turn in such a radically different direction? You can find the whole series available now on Audible. Just search for Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer on the Audible app, or go to audible.com/Springer.
On May 1st, 1963, Thomas pleaded innocent to the murder charge against him. His attorney asked the court to pay for 2 psychiatrists to examine him. Harry Anderson wrote in an affidavit that he was convinced Thomas was insane at the time of the offense. And I found that to be very odd. What does it matter if his attorney's convinced?
Does it mean he'll provide a better or a weaker defense?
I don't know. I didn't understand that part at all. Jury selection for the murder trial started on June 24th, 1963. The defense didn't make a move to have the trial venue changed. Testimony started on the 26th. In his opening statement, the DA described the murder in detail and told the jury they had little choice but to find Thomas guilty of first-degree murder. Officer Mort Ammerman was the first witness. He testified about arriving at Sonja's house to determine why she hadn't picked up her son. He said he first knocked on the door. When Sonja didn't answer, he tested the handle and found it unlocked. He partially opened the door and called out to her, but she didn't answer. He took out his flashlight and he saw razor blades and stains on the floor. He decided to go inside to look around, and that's when he found Sonja's heart and foot on the floor.
Some sight, I tell you what.
Well, I think if you're this officer later recounting, you're probably going to have a very good recall. I don't think this is something that you're going to forget.
For a very, very long time, if ever.
According to the Reno Gazette-Journal, Ammerman testified, "I saw a hope chest along the rear wall of the living room with what appeared to be a wax figurine or dummy in it. It had a waxy appearance. But when he touched it, he realized it was a human body."
I don't know, man.
I mean, I'm getting a little chill.
Yeah.
Just thinking about what this guy went through that day. Color photos of Sonja's dismembered remains were shown at trial. The defense didn't even make any objections. Some said that Thomas grinned occasionally as the photographs were introduced. Okay, if that's true, number one, that's sick.
Sure.
Number two, it's stupid if you're a defendant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like jury 101, you know, hey, before we go out there, here's are the things you don't do, and here's the things that you can do. And I think maybe he might have missed that point.
High on the list should have been, hey, don't laugh or grin when they show pictures of this woman's dismembered body.
Exactly.
Dr. V.A. Salvadorini testified that Sonja's cause of death was strangulation. A bruise found near her lip occurred shortly before her death, but all of the stab wounds and cuts were inflicted after death. Captain Dallas Severs and Lieutenant Frank Hart presented 71 items of evidence, including the chest where Sonja's torso and head were found. The murder weapon, a 24-inch cord with clothespins attached, was found in a wicker basket in the closet hidden under a black shirt. Severs demonstrated 20 points of similarity between Thomas's footprint and the bloody footprint found on the floor of Sonja's apartment.
That's a lot of similarities. It's going to be hard to...
Is it? I don't know what the right number is.
I think it'd be hard to debate that.
Like you're some kind of footprint expert, 20's a lot.
20 is a lot.
Is it? I don't know. Could you have 40, 50, 60? Maybe.
I think 20 is a lot.
Okay. I'm going to go with you because I don't know what it was like to manually compare footprints in the early 1960s. I know you were there, you lived it, so I'm going to have to go with your knowledge. Sievers testified that inside Thomas's home, investigators found black underwear and a pair of gloves in the pockets of a coat Thomas said he was wearing on the night of the murder. They also found a length of twine that Thomas said was used to make the murder weapon. So, I mean, I think right off the bat, all of this shows you we're not talking about a mastermind, right? A seasoned murderer. This is an 18-year-old who seems as though he's winging it.
Yeah. Just flying by the seat of his pants.
I mean, he doesn't even throw away the murder weapon, tucks it under a shirt in the hamper, takes underwear, with him, and then later says, yeah, that was the jacket I was wearing. I mean, I don't know. It really, like you said, flying by the seat of his pants. It just seems like he was a kid. I keep saying kid. I know he's 18 years old, but an 18-year-old just out when he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, it clicked in his mind. Now I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like it started with stealing women's underwear from clotheslines and then progressed to where he finally got, I don't want to say nerve because that's not the right word. He had this urge, obviously,
Sure, yeah.
and he decided to act on it.
He had the opportunity.
FBI document specialist Clarence Bone testified that the signatures on the pawn shop record and those on Thomas's police identification sheet were written by the same person. FBI agent Cornelius McWright testified that the front of Thomas's jeans showed traces of human blood. He testified that Sonja had group A blood. That's what they called it. And the same type was found on several pieces of evidence. The murder weapon had the same blood type. FBI agent Paul Stombaugh testified that the cord used to strangle Sonja could have been cut from a piece of twine taken from Thomas's bedroom. He found head hairs attached to the twine and compared them to Sonja's hair. It was a match. Now, you know how I feel about matching hairs
Yeah.
back then, but you're hearing all this evidence. It's a mountain of evidence.
It is.
Against this guy, but he's already admitted that he committed the murder. Now he pleaded innocent, or what today we would say not guilty, or whatever. His attorneys even came out and said, hey, this is not a whodunit. My client did it.
Exactly.
And all this evidence is just kind of backing it up. The transcript of Thomas's confession was read in court on July 1st. The following quotes come from the Reno Gazette-Journal. Thomas said in his confession that Sonja woke up while he strangled her. She said, "Don't do it now. I have a baby to support." He told detectives, "You asked the motive. I have none. It's been a childhood dream to rape a girl, and I don't know why. I've tried to kick it."
Bizarre thing to say.
I think he's being truthful.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's bizarre, but it's also scary. To hear someone say, from the time that I was a child, I have thought about rape. That is a very scary thing to hear.
Not even thought about it. It was a dream.
Yeah. Childhood dream.
Yeah.
Thomas said he had a violent temper, but he tried to relieve tension by stealing women's underwear. He said he wanted psychiatric help when he was an inmate at the Nevada Youth Training Center, but he didn't get any. And you and I have done so many episodes about individuals who've committed not only murders, but also sexual crimes. And, a lot of times we've talked about this. Where does it start? Voyeurism, stealing women's undergarment.
Right.
That's a pretty common thing with a lot of the killers that we've talked about, who are motivated by the sexual component of it.
Yeah. It just kind of escalates from there.
Thomas said that he spent 4 hours dismembering Sonja's body. He told the police, "I don't know why I cut her up. I don't. I just shoved the knife in and started to cut. That's all. I had no reason for doing it. Maybe raping her, but not killing her. It didn't bother me if I would have got caught. I don't know why. He doesn't seem to know really anything or have the reasoning for much of what he did that night.
No, definitely doesn't have remorse.
Thomas said he had no sensation while cutting her up. He said it was like I was under the influence of dope.
4 hours.
Yeah, it seems like a long time, but look at the instruments that he was using. He's not using a skill saw like the mafia would have done back in the day. To cut up a human being with a kitchen knife?
Yeah.
That's going to take some time. Witness Patsy Willis testified about going on dates with Thomas after Sonja's murder. During one of the dates, Thomas talked about the murder. They stopped at his home because he wanted to pick up a couple of guns. Thomas told her he lived in Sonja's neighborhood and wanted protection. The prosecution closed their case by presenting a deputy sheriff who testified that Thomas tried to end his life in the Washoe County Jail on May 23rd. He had cut one of his wrists. Now, I don't know what that testimony does to the jury. Does it tell them that he was sorry that he did what he did? Or does it tell them that he doesn't want to go through with what's about to come? I don't know what you make of it.
I don't know how you would interpret that.
Well, whichever way you went, I don't think it would be conclusive, right? It would just be your opinion. Dr. David Wilson testified for the defense on July 2nd. Wilson testified that Thomas was acting out a daydream or fantasy when he killed Sonja. Thomas told him he believed if he carried out his fantasy, it would steer him away from the abnormal course he had been taking since he was a small boy. And again, that seems so strange. Whether he really meant it or not, it's almost as if he's saying, if I just do it, then I won't have this compulsion to act abnormally, as he called it, anymore. And maybe he thought that way, maybe he didn't. I never know when some of these individuals are talking to mental health professionals. Are they being sincere? Are they being honest? Or are they trying to steer the conversation in a certain direction because they know it's going to be in their best interest?
Sure. I think they're probably pretty good at doing that part.
Recently, Thomas had been stealing women's underwear from clotheslines for gratification. He saw a white slip on Sonja's clothesline, which led him to her home. Something you don't see a lot anymore. I remember when I was young.
Same here.
All the people in their backyard, right? Had a clothesline. They hung their clothes out. We all have dryers and stuff now. Most people do.
Yeah, but it did save some money back in the day. I never really liked how they came back in like stiff.
I don't think I would want my neighbors seeing my drawers, like just hanging up all the time.
Well, there's that too, especially the weird ones you wear.
Yeah.
That's all.
The underdog, the Superman.
And the weird shapes.
I don't want people seeing what I wear. Dr. Wilson said Thomas told him that his father's association with a woman drove him out of the house that night. Thomas spoke of assaults and threats on his father and being bullied by other kids. Dr. Wilson testified sooner or later, this episode would have occurred. Somewhere in the evening, he went over the bounds of control, probably when he entered the house or sometime after. It's almost as if he was acting out a part. There was no emotion. The emotion was spent in rape. The rest was just vaguely there. So you have this doctor, right, giving his opinion. One of the things that did jump out at me was Thomas saying that he was bullied by other kids. That is something that has not changed.
No.
We've talked about much more recent murderers who were bullied.
Yeah.
And told people they were bullied as kids, and it changed them, or
impactful.
It was impactful to them, not in a good way. Thomas told Dr. Wilson, I can't feel responsible because it wasn't me. Dr. Wilson said that Thomas didn't sell the camera because he needed money. He did it because he was guilty and he wanted to be caught. He described Thomas's mental illness as closer to schizophrenia than anything else. Wilson testified that Thomas was not capable of knowing right from wrong at the time of the murder, but he was aware of what he was doing. He acknowledged the prosecution summary of his testimony at all times. He was aware of what he was doing, and he could perceive what he was seeing and doing. He knew it was wrong in the sense that it was against the law. Okay, so now I'm confused. At one point, he says that Thomas didn't know right from wrong at the time of the murder, but then right after that says he knew it was wrong in the sense that it was against the law. Well, then he knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
It seemed like very strange testimony. Those two things were at odds, and they both came from Dr. Wilson. Dr. Walter Rappaport testified in rebuttal that Thomas had a plan to commit a rape when he left home on April 4th, and he was armed with a garrote and a knife. Thomas told him he was going to use the garrote to effect a rape. Thomas was not psychotic, and he knew right from wrong. So not shocking, right, that we get two doctors giving differing opinions, one for the prosecution, one for the defense. Thomas said that he got the idea to use the twine from TV and that he used the clothespins to protect his hands while pulling it tight. Thomas saw Sonja's sports car that night, which attracted him to her home. He said he used a pair of women's underwear to keep his prints off the doorknob, which he learned from TV.
Thanks, TV. I think with all the shows out there today, what you could possibly learn.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's learning this stuff in the late 50s, early 60s.
Right.
I mean, now we've got, 25, 30 different crime procedurals.
Yeah.
Kind of really going in depth about forensics, and there's definitely a lot out there. But, I made the assumption earlier that the women's underwear that was found in his coat, he took either from a clothesline or from Sonja's home. I think what he said was that he took it with him and used it to not leave fingerprints. Now, he had to have gotten that women's underwear from somewhere, and maybe it was from one of his earlier forays out in the, late at night.
Well, I mean, it could have dual purposes for him.
Yes. Dr. Rappaport said he could not diagnose Thomas at that time, but if he did become mentally ill, it would be schizophrenia. I found that extremely odd.
I do too.
There's a lot of statements by these mental health professionals that are kind of stupefying me, to be honest with you. I can't diagnose him, but if he later becomes mentally ill, it would be schizophrenia.
Okay.
I can't diagnose you.
No.
But later on, if you do become mentally ill, it will be X.
Because that's what it's got to be.
That makes no sense, right?
It does not.
Dr. Rappaport also revealed that Thomas developed a hatred for his mother when she allowed him to be sent to the Nevada Youth Training Center. He also hated his father. Now, I think there are kids who hate mother, father, one, or both. The percentage seems to be much, much higher with killers that we profile who have an issue with one or both of their parents. And maybe it's because of trauma in their childhood or things that their parents did, but it comes up a lot. The last prosecution witness was Dr. Rudolph Toller, who testified that Thomas was not out of contact with reality and he knew right from wrong. Thomas told Dr. Toller that he felt like he had to do something that night or he was going to explode. According to Toller, Thomas found Sonja's door unlocked. He left and returned to her home. Both Dr. Rappaport and Dr. Toller testified that if Thomas had a girlfriend, he might not have killed Sonja.
Only if he had a girlfriend that he might not have. That's a big might.
And it's also, to me, testimony that you would never hear today.
No.
I just can't imagine a mental health professional saying some of these things in, 2023. They're not coming out and saying it, but I'm making the inference that they're saying this guy was so sexually frustrated that if he had a girlfriend or a partner or something, he wouldn't have committed this crime.
Because he would have been able to leave himself?
I guess.
Yeah.
But he already said he was doing that with the women's undergarments.
So,
But apparently that was not enough, according to them.
according to them, yeah.
During closing arguments, Harry Anderson asked the jury, according to the Reno Gazette-Journal, how many people does he have to kill to show he is insane? No sane person does what this boy did. Now, I get it. This defense attorney's trying to get, his client out from under first-degree murder, the death penalty, all of that. But this is an incorrect statement. There are all kinds of people who are not mentally ill who commit these types of heinous murders. He argued that if Thomas was sentenced to death, psychologists could not study him to help other boys with the same problems. Again, I just feel like, you're really pulling stuff out of your wazoo at this point.
I feel like if they would have spent more time on the front end of the defense, they could have did better for him than trying to do what they're doing here.
Yeah, but to do that, he would have had to have not come out very early on and said, my client committed this murder.
Right.
Once you do that, what do you...
Box yourself.
Yeah, what are you going to argue? I mean, I think the defense attorney from the start was just focused on insanity, not going to get the death penalty. The DA implied that the death penalty was the right decision. And on July 8th, the jury found Thomas guilty of first-degree murder and ordered him to be sentenced to death. When asked if he would appeal, Harry Anderson said he would, unless Thomas told him differently or took it away from them. When asked to explain, Anderson told the court that Thomas attempted to end his life during the trial. On the 22nd of July, Thomas was formally sentenced to death by a judge. His execution was set for the week of September 23rd, so a month later. On August 21st, the Nevada Supreme Court granted a stay of execution pending the outcome of an appeal. Thomas's case was submitted in a brief to the state Supreme Court on March 6, 1964. His attorney listed 6 points for grounds for a new trial. The main argument was that the McNaughton rule was outdated and dangerous to society. The McNaughton rule is a test of sanity to determine if the subject knew right from wrong at the time of the act. Thomas's attorneys argued on January 14th, 1965, that he didn't receive a fair trial due to 7 errors. One error was that the jury should have been given an instruction about what would happen if they found Thomas insane. Thomas's attorneys also argued that the current test of legal insanity, the McNaughton rule, was harsh. On January 22nd, the Nevada Supreme Court upheld the murder conviction. The court found that 2 errors were made, but they were said to have been harmless. And I took that to mean they wouldn't have affected the outcome of the trial.
Yeah.
On March 11th of that year, Thomas's execution was set for April 7th. On March 19th, the Nevada Supreme Court granted another stay of execution to allow time for an appeal. The next year, on June 20th, 1966, the United States Supreme Court refused to review Thomas's case. Thomas claimed that he was not told of his right to remain silent or have an attorney and questioned if his confession was admissible. The DA argued that the defense made no attempt to block the confession at trial and even asked that it be admitted. So, this goes back to your point. Would it have been different if the defense had taken a different route and actually argued the facts of the case and, asked for a change of venue, tried to get some of the evidence excluded? It seems as though they just kind of fast forwarded to the let's prove he was insane at the time of the murder part of the trial, and it didn't work.
It backfired.
In October 1966, Thomas was ordered to be returned to the Washoe District Court for a hearing based on the argument that he did not receive a fair trial due to pretrial publicity and lack of effective counsel. The hearing didn't start until September 11th, 1967. At this hearing, the DA was accused of trying to inflame the jury with the color photos of Sonja's body. Harry Anderson died in January of 1964. His widow testified that he was sick with what he thought was the flu before and during the trial. He was exhausted and was taking a lot of medication. After the trial, he went on a fishing trip and passed out, and he died in January of 64. Mrs. Anderson said that her husband was very interested and concerned about the case, according to the Reno Gazette-Journal. He was not alert physically, but was quite alert mentally. That's what she said.
Okay.
But it does sound like he had something going on. But I could also see how, he's passed away. She doesn't want, his name to be smeared. She's trying to kind of preserve his good name. Over a year later, on October 7th, 1968, a Washoe District Court judge ruled that Thomas received a fair trial. In 1972, the Supreme Court found that the death penalty was unconstitutional. This affected 8 death row inmates in Nevada, and one of these inmates was Thomas Bean. Later that year, the Nevada Board of Pardons commuted the death sentences of those 8 inmates to life without parole. According to the Nevada Department of Corrections inmate search page, Thomas Lee Bean is 78 years old and still incarcerated. Gibbs, he was 18 years old at the time of that murder.
Just a kid, really. I mean, I know people will say, no, 18, you're legally an adult, but...
Which is true.
It is.
Legally, you are an adult. And so you are sentenced as an adult. And I'm not arguing, or I won't argue the fact that, he deserved to be in prison for the rest of his life.
No.
I'm just kind of thinking 60 years is a long time.
Well, he had a dream. He went for his dream. Now he has to
live with the consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I go back to that and think, what a bizarre way to say it.
Right.
I had a childhood dream. And most of the time when you hear that, you're thinking about somebody who wants to play in the NFL, the NBA, be an astronaut.
Yeah.
Not rape a girl, which is what he said his childhood dream was.
Yeah, scary.
The police described Sonja's death as the worst murder in the history of the city. According to the Reno Gazette-Journal, Thomas Bean struggled with feelings of hatred towards his parents, no doubt. And he even admitted it. He had fantasies of rape from a very young age. I think he and his family felt as though the system failed him, right? He didn't get the mental health help that he needed when he was in, some of these facilities. And that ultimately contributed to the brutal murder of Sonja McCaskie. And that might be true. He may have needed help. He might not have gotten that help.
Yeah, I think he needed help.
Now, as part of that, the time frame in which, Thomas Bean grew up in, maybe. Does he get that help today? I think it's much more likely that he would.
I think so.
Because we've come a long way with our understanding of mental health and issues around that. I think to your point, this was a kid even up to, the age of 18 who, had some very disturbing thoughts and urges. Now, what would have helped that? I don't know. Was he mentally ill because he had those thoughts and urges? I don't know that either. I still don't know how a mental health professional can say he didn't know right from wrong, but he knew that what he did was against the law.
That's contradicting to me.
Yeah, I'm struggling to understand how that works. One thing that I'm really wondering is most of what we talked about that had to do with his childhood came from his dad in talking to the papers. I just wonder if there was more that wasn't told. Obviously, his dad's not going to really disclose things that would make him look bad.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying there was, I'm just wondering if maybe there was a little bit more that happened.
I think it's very possible.
To shape this guy.
Yes.
Or to traumatize him or, kind of lead him down this this very strange, odd path. But
I mean, I think there's got to be something that influenced that conversation in his head that my dream is to rape a woman.
yeah, from a young age,
Yeah.
it seems like something had to trigger that. I just don't know how that crops up all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But that's it for our episode on Thomas Lee Bean. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Always want to hear those.
Bonjour, Mike and Gibby. This is Jolie's Eve from Limbe, Haiti, and I just wanted to let you guys know I love you so much. Like everyone else, you bring me hours and hours of joy. I hope you enjoyed the coffee. It is from an area near my village. I am in Cap Haitien, so not in Port-au-Prince where most of the issues are happening, but I just wanted to stop for a second and just say thank you. And for the longest time, I was very much Team Gibby. It was like, Gibby, 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 yay, Gibby. But then I heard Mike sing Bruce Springsteen, and I was sold. I will die for you, Mike. And here's the song. Hey, little Mikey, is your mama home? Did she go and leave you alone? I got a bad desire. Oh, T-Cats. On fire. Okay, je t'aime. I love you. And I will continue to listen and donate.
Wow.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. First of all, love the accent.
Absolutely.
One of my new favorites right
Yeah.
there. And then it always amazes me how you have the accent, but when you go to sing the song, the accent's gone.
Isn't that amazing?
You ever notice that?
Yeah. I can't believe she flipped on me, though.
Oh, I can.
Now, that means to get her back, I have to sing.
Yeah. I've been trying to coax you into it.
But if I do that,
For
it's
years.
just not fair to you.
It won't be fair.
You know?
Who are you, Tom Jones?
I'm just saying.
Hi guys, my name is Christina and I'm originally from California, but I actually live in the small state Rhode Island. I'm just calling because I wanted to thank you guys so much for your podcast. I've been listening since I think like 2018 and I went through a lot of loss since then. My dad passed away and his name was also Mike. And I listened to you guys' podcast religiously during that time. It really helped me. And then when I moved across the country, I drove. So I made my boyfriend, who was driving with me, listen to you guys' podcast basically the whole drive. So he knows all about you guys now. I think I'm Team Fergie, but you guys are both great. And keep your on-time tickets.
Now,
Wow.
I swear I did not pick these on purpose.
I think you did.
I didn't.
It's not fair. No.
That I picked the voicemails. Because if that was the case, I wouldn't play so many that say I'm Team Gibby.
Yeah, that's true.
It just happened that way.
Wow, she moved from the third largest state to the smallest state. That's pretty amazing.
You're really trying to show off your knowledge of geography there,
That's right.
aren't you?
Yeah.
All right.
I know my
I dig it.
my geography.
Geology. You studied rocks and locations and maps and all
My
of that.
dad always said, "Is your head just full of rocks?" I'm like, "That's
Sometimes.
geology, man."
All right. We had no mailbag. She mentioned, the first caller mentioned coffee,
Yeah,
but I don't know where that's coming from. I haven't got it yet.
probably on its way.
I don't know if you've sent anything international lately. It is taking a very long time for things to get where they're supposed to go. Even across the country, seems like things are taking longer than it used to.
Unless it was really good coffee and somebody got to the mail before you did
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
and attempted to try it and liked it and just didn't let you know that it was received.
Yeah, that could happen. I don't
Yeah.
think so. But that is it, buddy, for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike,
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
At the turn of the 20th century, rapid industrialization, urbanization, and political corruption were ravaging America. But soon, President Theodore Roosevelt and a diverse group of reformers known as progressives would fight back. Hi, I'm Lindsey Graham, the host of Wondery's podcast, American History Tellers. We take you to the events, times, and people that shaped America and Americans, our values, our struggles, and our dreams. In our latest series, we explore the Progressive Era, which came to be defined by Teddy Roosevelt and others who believed in a strong, active government that worked on behalf of all Americans rather than the privileged few. As the United States entered the 20th century, these progressives hoped to steer the nation in a bold new direction, to launch an era of reform to restore power to the people. Follow American History Tellers on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Experience all episodes ad-free and be the first to binge the newest season only on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Start your free trial today.